What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another sprint from Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast where we give you real life tips, tactics, and techniques you can apply to your everyday life. So strap in, tighten up, and let's get ready to hustle. Today, we're going to talk about the 6 P's of success. Garrison, you know what the 6 P's of success are?
Yes. Planning prevents piss poor performance.
What kind of planning?
Perfect.
Proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
I did not plan to say that properly.
That's it, man. Proper planning prevents piss poor performance. And the reason that we want to talk about this, because if you're paying any kind of attention to our drop schedule, you're going to notice that we didn't drop this episode on Tuesday. And you want to know why? Because we failed to plan to record. So Garrison has been on a little escapade up in Nash Vegas, while me and my extraordinarily pregnant wife have been sitting here waiting on a baby, which is really cool. I'm a little jealous that we didn't get to go, but it's going to be worth it. So I'm not stressed out about that. But we didn't record before they left. So yesterday afternoon, whenever we were getting ready, I normally edit our podcast and our YouTube videos on Sunday night. And Sunday morning, I got to thinking about what I was going to do for the evening, right? Trying to do a little bit of planning. And I realized that we didn't record an episode. So here we are today on Monday. Tomorrow's drop day. Highly unlikely I'm going to get this thing fully edited and dropped in time to put out Tuesday morning. And our performance is struggling because of it. So Garrison and I got together right before the episode and we said, what are we going to talk about? And I thought this was the perfect time to talk about how planning really, really is going to elevate your game in life.
So true. Yeah, it's 7:23 p.m. on a Monday night, and I don't see this episode dropping in the morning. So here we are.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a shot, man. But this, the editing process is not a quick one, and the guy that posts these videos and episodes for us is probably going to be either in bed or on his way to bed by the time I get finished. So I'm not going to stress him out about it. I hope you guys don't mind listening to this on Wednesday versus Tuesday. You're still getting your dose of the hustlers. This is what it looks like this week. Our bad, right? Piss poor planning right there on our part. Piss poor performance because of lack of proper planning. Anyway.
Yep, that's definitely the case.
That's it. What planning. So what does planning do for you, Garrison, in your life every day?
So planning is actually what I do for a living. And it's extremely important because if you don't properly plan the things that you want to execute, right, towards your goals and towards being successful, you're not going to have the right tools. You may be able to get what you're planning to do done, but if you don't properly plan, you will not have the tools necessary to execute at a high level and to be efficient. Let's say you want to go to the gym after work, but you fail to properly plan to pack your gym clothes and pack your pre-workout before you head out the door to work. Guess who's not going to the gym right after work? So there's one example of properly planning. Today I planned to go get some work done in our business after work, and I planned ahead by packing tools. I packed, the materials that I needed to get the job done, and I planned to leave from work and make sure that there was nothing else, no more commitments, so I could go and knock out those tasks that I needed to do. And that's me striving for success in our business, getting things done on time. That way, we're not delaying other things. And those are just some small examples of just today.
Yeah, what I find in my everyday life, we talk on here a lot. I know at least I do little sidebar mentions where I say, look, I'm a planner. And it's true. I try to do my best to plan things out and try to make a plan and stick to them. And the reason that I consider myself a planner, right, doing finger quotes, is because if I don't do that, my whole, everything that I want to do gets derailed. You know what I mean? To me, it's that important. And there are a lot of people. Chase is a good example of this. There's a lot of people that can kind of just flow, kind of go with the motions and still be efficient and get things done. But I'm not one of those people, man. Like, I have to have some type of a plan, some type of a routine. I have to write things down. I have to check them off. That's just how my brain functions, right? That's whenever I'm at peak performance is whenever I'm executing a plan. And, I don't know if I attribute a lot of that to experience in the military or if it's just my personality. But it's so funny that we're talking about planning because of a lack of planning. Whenever I go teach officer candidates every weekend at the officer candidate school about how important making plans and communicating clear and concise plans are to their subordinates. You know what I mean? It's almost ironic.
Yeah, I think it's important that you teach them proper planning, especially in that line of work. But just being prepared, that's a part of the planning process, is being prepared. And like you mentioned, some people are good at going with the flow and they can just make things work. But that's also probably because it's part of their routine. And they got that routine by planning. So they have the stuff they need to execute the task that they want to execute with them at all times, and they know what's coming up next. And if it's part of their routine, it's not that hard to plan for. It's getting it to that level.
So what are some ways that do you consider yourself a planner? Let's start there. Like, in your personal life, I know you do it for a job, but do you consider yourself a person that has to have a defined plan, or do you consider yourself a person that kind of is better at going with the flow?
I think I float somewhere in between you and Chase. Your level of planning is a lot higher, just because it's who you are by nature. And I think it's part of the fact that you're in the military. I think that that's been instilled in you. And I think I'm a little bit more of a planner than maybe Chase. And I'm not saying that he's not prepared for stuff. Like, Chase is he's good at going with the flow. But I do have to prepare more. Some of the things that I'm doing in my life right now are not things that I've done for a long time. Pretty much everything. The business is new to me. My job is new to me. Trying to go to the gym every day is relatively new to me within the last year and a half or so. So I do have to plan to an extent, but I can also kind of fly by the seat and just kind of make things work. But I'm way less efficient. I'm way less efficient. So I'll give you an example, and I'll come clean. Today, I did go get some work done after work, but I forgot one of the materials that I needed to execute one of the tasks that I had to do. So instead of going straight from Baton Rouge to Baton Rouge, where I had to get something done, I had to drive 20 minutes home to pick up something and go 20 minutes back to Baton Rouge. So I wasted 40 minutes of my day, and I'm paying for it now. It's, when we're done with this, I have to get up and go to the gym instead of having already worked out. But I'm paying. That's the piss poor performance from my lack of proper planning.
That's right, man. So what are some ways, like, what are some things that you do to help you plan? Like, are you a planner? Do you use like written plans? Do you use your notes in your phone? What are some things that you do specifically?
So in some cases I do write down, like if I have a list of tasks and it's starting to feel like a little overwhelming to me, I'll make like in my notes in my phone, I'll put all those things on a list. That way I can help myself plan to execute those tasks. But I'm not a huge like keeping a list for a daily task. I'm not. I want you to talk about that because I know you are more so that way. But yeah, I do have to plan for whenever I start feeling overwhelmed. That's when I really start kicking in the planning aspect of like just my life on a day-to-day basis. But I try to plan to go to bed at a certain time. I try to keep myself on a schedule. So I do plan for some routine type stuff. But usually until I get overwhelmed, I just kind of go with the flow. But it doesn't always pay off that way.
Right. So I'm kind of similar in that, to be honest. Like, we talk about me making lists and things like that, which I do, but I don't. Back to your point about routines, I don't make plans for things that are part of my routine. I try to make as much part of my routine as possible. Then I don't have to write it down, right? Like, at this point, going to the gym is part of my routine. My wife's on board. Everybody understands that. I get off work at 4:30. I go to the gym. I get off work at 4. I'm at the gym from 4:30 to 5:30, and then I'm home at 6. Like that is the routine. So I don't have to necessarily go to the gym every day and then check that off. For routine things like that, I don't make lists. But what I do is anything that's outside of the norm, like you were just talking about, anything that's not part of the daily routine that I have to make sure gets done. I use the reminders app on my phone a lot. And I'll set a reminder. And if it's, if something needs to happen at 11 o'clock the next day, I'll set the reminder for like 9 or so, and then set a second reminder for 10, depending on how much like lead time I need to do whatever the thing is. And then I'll let that reminder send me an alert notification on my phone. And then I'll just like that. That's how I keep the non-routine tasks in check, right? That's for like non-routine personal tasks or business tasks or things like that. Now I will say, at work, so I'm a project manager on the civilian side, and then I teach officer candidates, on the weekend for the Guard. But at work, whenever I'm doing project management stuff, I do keep a daily list of like running open action items. I just call them action items. So like I have a little tablet on my desk, and I use the little check boxes, right? I'll put a check and say, follow up with this person on X, follow up with this person on Y. And I kind of leave that as a running action item list until I'm completely finished with the task. And if I get partially finished with it, what I'll do is I'll put like a 1 right at the end of the sentence. And then on the other side of the page, like, right on the left side of the page, like everybody, obviously. But on the right side of the page, I kind of split the page in the middle, and I'll write like a 1 at the end of the sentence. And then over on the right-hand side, I'll write a corresponding 1. And then I write like whatever the follow-up is. So if it's partially complete, I'll write 1 partially complete. And I won't check it off. So I won't check it off until the task is completely finished. But I keep like this running list of action items sitting on my desk all day long. If somebody just, if I'm working on my computer, kind of zoned out typing, and somebody comes in and says, hey, don't forget to submit this report to this person by this time. I'll write it on the little action item list, submit report to so-and-so by 3 o'clock. And then I'll go back to doing whatever I was doing. And then every hour or every half hour or whatever, I'll just glance over at that little action item list and be like, oh yeah, I almost forgot to do that. I'm just the kind of person that if I don't write down something that I have to do that's not part of my routine, I'll just forget about it. Like I'll get overwhelmed with other stuff and just completely space and forget what I was supposed to be doing. That drives my wife insane, because I'm starting to ask her to like create a running action item list for me in like Outlook calendars or in Google. I don't care what format it's in, just something where if we got, my kid just started ball practice, a little T-ball or whatever. If we have to go to T-ball practice on Tuesday, put it in the calendar so I can look at the calendar every day and see where I'm supposed to be after work that day. So I don't inadvertently make plans on top of plans that we already have scheduled. Like I think what we were talking about with Chase being really good at going at the flow, and what it is that he's just got an impeccable memory and doesn't forget the things that he has to do. He just remembers to do all these things. I am not like that. I have got to write that stuff down or I'm going to forget.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But, kind of as you mentioned about non-routine task, I do the same thing, except I use the calendar app. And, if it's a doctor's appointment that's 6 months out, I'll set a reminder a week ahead, and then I'll do a second alert a day ahead. That way I keep reminding myself, hey, that's coming up next week. That's coming up tomorrow. That's coming up in an hour. You need to leave early from work or whatever it is. But I did not use planners until I became a planner. I have basically like it's a weekly planner tablet, like a little book basically. And everything that I do throughout the day, I have to write it down because we work off of like work order numbers, and there's no way I'm going to remember work order numbers for a million different things going on. And if I don't write it down, it gets lost. I mean, it would take me forever to find, oh man, what was that work order number? How do I get back to it? What's the status of this material? So I find a lot of value in using something that you can keep a running list of what you have done, what you need to do, especially in a job like the one I have now, where I have to remember 10 to 20 different things that I did or have to do or need, is coming up on a daily basis. So I definitely value that now more so than I ever did before.
Yeah, I think another thing that people forget about planning, and this is evident by us dropping this podcast late, is that even if something is part of your routine, the whole concept of planning is future based, right? So you can't just think about the 50-meter target. Like last Sunday, we were just thinking about getting last week or this past week's episode out and published, right? But we didn't look forward down the road and consider the fact that we weren't going to have any time between last Sunday and this Sunday to record an episode before you left on vacation. So you have to consciously sit down with every task and deliberately think about what you need to do in the future to make sure that you are continuing to be successful. And that's the whole concept of a plan anyway. I know it sounds kind of stupid to explain it like that. Like you're planning to plan, like no crap. But what I'm trying to say is even if something is part of your routine, you have to have a little bit of foresight when you're making your plans to think about contingency planning, right? Like what if something in my routine changes? What is my plan going to be at that point? And where we failed with this is that we didn't contingency plan. We didn't have a couple of episodes stored up in the bank just in case something happens. We weren't properly planning ahead of time for contingencies, right? For unforeseen circumstances. And that ultimately, I think, is what has let us down in this case, right? That's why I wanted to talk specifically about how proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Yeah, definitely lesson learned on that. And you kind of started touching on it, and I kind of want to bring it home. Just because you have a routine doesn't mean that something non-routine can't throw a complete wrench in that, and your routine is just completely off. So you got to watch out for those non-routine items affecting your routine items, because if you don't plan for that, you're going to end up in a position that we are, which, fortunately it's not a huge deal. The episode's going to drop one day late. It doesn't look great on us, but hey, we're here. We're committed to do this, and lesson learned going forward. We won't make that mistake again.
And it's real life, right? Like we don't talk about anything on this podcast that we don't live every day. We made a mistake, right? We're going to own that mistake. We're going to talk about the things that caused it, right? And then we're just going to try not to let it happen again. We're going to make plans for it not to happen again. We're going to come up with solutions that help us do a little bit of that contingency planning we were just talking about and try to prevent it from happening in the future. And that's what planning is all about, right? You make a plan if everything goes well, then you make a couple of backup plans for whenever things start to go south, because they're going to go south. So you have to have those backups in the play. What was it? Mike Tyson said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? You have to have these contingency plans in place.
Yeah, and just tapping back into one of our other weekly sprints, if you haven't seen our sprint on fear, we're embracing, failure. We're embracing the failure. We're going to learn from it, and we're going to move on, and we're not going to make the mistake again.
Yeah, I think that's what it's all about, man. You have to consciously sit down, think about what you want to do, create a routine, have some type of tracking mechanism for non-routine things, whether that's an app in your phone or a physical planner, your calendar app, whatever. There's plenty of technology, plenty of platforms you can choose to help you plan. But not only do you have to plan for your routine and make things part of your routine, but you need to plan for contingencies and non-routine events. I think that's the point I really wanted to drive home with this thing. Also, you need to understand that things are not always going to go according to plan, and that's okay too. So that's what the contingencies and the backups are for. And sometimes you might just have to punt and come up with a new solution, right? I do that often as well. Like if my entire plan gets derailed, there's no getting it back, I'll just punt, right? Just punt, take a knee, think about it, come up with a new plan, and then go forward and execute that plan. But I really wanted to talk about proper planning preventing piss poor performance today.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head.
All right. Anything else? Anything you want to close with?
No, I don't really have any more closing thoughts. I would just make sure that I'm planning better for next time.
That's it, man. That's it. Always learning, always growing, always moving forward. That's it, guys. It's another sprint from Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Remember, until next time, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. Hustle makes it happen. But most importantly, have fun. Later.